Thank you so much. My name is Joanna Sansel. I'm a recovered alcoholic.
Hi, Joe.
I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. When I was asked to speak here, I thought to myself, I spoke here 14 years ago or 15 years ago on a Saturday night, something like that, and I was sober 15 or 16 years, and now I'm sober 30 years, and I thought to myself, wow, what has happened since the last time I was here? And my mind started to spin. I go, where do I start this talk at? What do I talk about first? If you would have sat me down 14, 15 years ago and said, you are not going to believe what's going to happen to you in the next 15 years. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to go there. I would have thought, you must be talking to that guy back there because you're not talking to me. Surely you can't mean me. And I really had to stop and think what I want to talk about tonight. Surely I'm going to talk about my drinking. But the last 15 years have been such a change, and the last 2 years have been the best. And if you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, I want to let you know that I am still growing spiritually at 30 years sober. I've been sober since October 5th, 1978. And I never thought I would be at an AA meeting on Saturday night talking about growing spiritually as being one of the highlights of my life. Do you remember the day before you got sober in AA? If you would have been sitting in the bar and somebody says, you know what? You're going to be wanting to grow spiritually on Saturday night with a bunch of other people one day. I would have said, are you out of your mind? Come on. Give me another drink. Get away from me. You're bothering me. But before I get going, I want to take the time. I would really feel bad if I didn't tell you this, because this might be one of my last talks talking to things like this, because the economy's changed, and just like a lot of people, I'm not immune to it. Where I work at, people are retiring. They're not replacing them. So the freedom of me saying, yeah, I'll come talk 6 months or a year from now is diminishing. It's going away. And I just want to tell you that I love each and every one of you. Because without you, I wouldn't have a story to tell. This isn't a self-help program. This is a we program, and I would feel terrible if it was one of my last talks that I didn't tell you how much I love you and how much you mean to me. Even the people I haven't met, you mean something to me deep down inside. Because without you, I wouldn't have this story I'm going to share with you tonight to tell it all. I feel privileged to be here. I have heard some heavy hitters up here. Norma, whew, blew me out. Damn. Wow. And you know what? When she was talking, I saw her mother. And I've known her mother for years. And my heart just went out to her because it's how I found AA. My mother was in AA, and I hated her too. She was telling my story, all those mixed messages and missed messages growing up with drunks, and just one hell of a talk. You are a tremendous speaker. Billy, you gave a whale of a talk. Craig, it's like, man, these are some of the best AA speakers I've heard at an AA conference in a long time. And I don't know, who was it? Is it Clay and Gary? Are you guys responsible for putting these people together? You guys have done a hell of a job. Hell of a job. The last time I was with a group of people like that who presented themselves the way these people do was in 1994 at the Hiawatha Land Get-Together in Rochester, Minnesota. I mean, it doesn't happen that often. There's this thing where everybody's on the same page and they come together, and if you would have heard Norma or Billy or Craig, you would have gone, I'm like these people. I am like these people. There would be no doubt if you were new in AA that you were at Alcoholics Anonymous. I just felt so privileged to be here, and I want to thank you. Gosh, my mind is spinning so bad. Where do I start? I grew up in North College Hill, a suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio, and it was a great place to grow up in. I lived on a little dead-end street, fourth house from the end, a little two-bedroom house, small house. It was so small you could hear people pass gas. I mean, just small. There's no privacy, no nothing. But it was a great place to live. There was a big field out back. Everybody knew everybody. It was one of those little neighborhoods where if a strange car came down the street, people kind of looked like, that doesn't belong here. Who is that? Kids would kick the can out in the street, play frisbee and softball or wiffle ball till the lights came on. I mean, it was a great place to grow up in. And I'm an alcoholic. My brother's an alcoholic. My mom's an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic. And it was a wild time growing up in our house. It was really something. It was never a boring moment, I can tell you that. My mother's an alcoholic. She got sober in 1971. And she's still sober today, and I don't think she'll live out the rest of the years. She's living in a rest home now. But she's the one that led me and my brother to Alcoholics Anonymous. And my mother's drinking took off before everybody else's did. Mom was about this tall, weighed about 190 pounds, wore one of those smocks, looked like a small circus tent. And she used to like to eat those black mollies and drink quarts of Stroh's beer. And she's just walking around like this all the time. Just whacked, you know what I mean? But that was Mom. You know, that was Mom. Dad was a character. My father was a very intelligent man, but he didn't have any people skills outside of his work arena. We would be sitting there. I remember being a kid, and aunt and uncle and cousins would come down the street, and he'd look out the window and go, "Oh God, I don't want to talk to those people. Jesus, can't even have a quiet Saturday. Well, God, tell them I'm not here." And he'd go down in the basement, 2-bedroom house. Your car's in the driveway. What do you want us to tell? Tell them I'm not here. Tell them I'm at a neighbor's house. And he'd sit down there and listen through the registers for 2 hours until they left. He'd come back out of the basement, and we'd go back to normal like nothing happened. Or if he had enough time, he would jump a six-foot chain-link fence like a deer and was gone. You know what I mean? And my cousin called me last year. My aunt died, his sister. And we were talking about what it was like to grow up in these alcoholic homes. It was bizarre. It was bizarre. She lived 2 blocks down the street, my grandmother, and my dad's family lived 2 blocks down the street. We know my grandmother lived there because we went there 2 times a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And my grandfather was a wet brain. He died on a sawdust bed in a mental institution in 1963. And before he got too bad, they would try to take care of him in the house. And there was just a lot of strain with a wet brain around the house. And my dad's sister, she was whacked from alcoholism just by being around drunks, and she was collecting Social Security from the age of 11. She'd go cash her Social Security check each month and go around and feed the dogs in the neighborhood and the butcher shop and just all kind of crazy, crazy stuff. And when I told my cousin what happened when my dad would see cousins and relatives come down the street, she goes, "You know what we did 2 blocks up the street in our house?" I go, "No, what?" She goes, "When the doorbell rings, we'd all just get quiet." I said, "Then what would you do?" She said, "Nothing. We just wait for him to go away." And I says, "You realize if we visit each other, we're going to have to sneak up on one another." That's what alcoholism does. You got to sneak up on family. But we were talking about that, how strained, you get not only mixed messages, but missed messages. It was about 1967. I was invited to a party. I was 13 years old. And I was blown away that I was invited to this party. I mean, the people there were grown up. I was 13, but they were 17 and 18. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? They had beards and breasts. I mean, just, they want me at their party. And the girl who invited me, her brother was sending home weed from Vietnam in the mail, in pillowcases. And when she'd get something in the mail, they'd go, "Laundry's in." And we knew what that was, but I went down there, and I was just an innocent kid. It was 1967. I'm 13 years old. And they said, "Hey, try this pot, kid." I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was 13. And it wasn't like at 13 years old in 1967 I was going, This will piss them off in A in 2009. Come on, I was 13, all right? It's a story, okay? I mean, it's leading in. Just be patient. And I got high on this stuff, and my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I got cotton mouth, and all these people were laughing. It was like everything went Disney World on me. You know, all the colors went up, Technicolor, and sound went to volume 10, James Gang's playing, Funk 49, and I'm going, you got anything to drink? Just my mouth is so dry. Jesus. Here. It looked like a big bottle of Bally High. It was like one of those big round bottles of Bally High. And I started to drink that, and I went, that's like high C. That's like fruit punch. Tahitian treat. And everybody's laughing. Everybody's just giggly, stupid stone. Stupid. And all of a sudden, they all just froze in time and looked at me, and the bottle was empty. And they said, you were supposed to pass that. I said, nobody told me. I mean, I didn't know anything about party etiquette when you're 13. I didn't know that. But when I left that party that night, I felt 17 and 18. It was like Bill Wilson in his story. I felt like I had arrived. It was a wonderful experience. And they said, you come back, kid. You're a lot of fun, but keep your mouth shut. We could go to jail for this. You know, and in my mind, I thought, they want me to come back. And in their mind, they go, that kid's like a pet monkey. He'll do anything for alcohol. But in my mind, they want me back. They want me back. It was just a fantastic experience. Then before you know it, I thought I drank that whole bottle of Bally High because the pot made me thirsty. I didn't know till I got to A anything about the allergy. I did the same thing with hash. I said, man, hash really makes me thirsty. God. Drank a whole bottle of Southern Comfort. Woo! Start sweating. I went to a party. I'm 14 years old, and I'm running around with people who are 25, just got out of the penitentiary. And they said, hey, you want to try this acid? I said, what's it do? He said, it makes you see things that aren't there. I said, really? Yeah. And he says, if you take it, you're the only one seeing it. And if it gets too intense, it'll wear off in about 12 hours. I said, let me get this straight. You mean to tell me that if I take this, I'm the only one that's going to be seeing what I see, and everybody else is going to be seeing something else? And it'll wear off in 12 hours. He said, yes, I got to try that. Well, let me have one. And about 400 of those trips later, something should have told me, there's something wrong with me. You know what I mean? You know, I remember starting to feel that. And I went, and he goes, oh, I forgot. And I loved it. I had a great time on it. Done every drug you can think of in my journey in the 60s and 70s, not knowing I was going to be offensive by mentioning them in AA. But in my generation, we grew up trying everything and anything, and I had fun with everything. I mean, I stayed up for days on black mollies and speed. I just loved it. I thought I was in control on speed until I realized after about 3 days I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and I couldn't pee. I'm not in control. I got to come down. And I started drinking. Drinking was the answer for everything. And you know what? In the background of all those different things I'm talking to you about was always alcohol. That stuff made me thirsty. I'm too high. I got to come down. Alcohol is the answer for everything. Boone's Farm apple wine, Strawberry Hill. I just loved all that. Just loved it. Now, I wasn't looking to fit in. I wasn't really feeling like a round peg trying to fit into a square hole or anything like that. As a young kid, I was a kind of a confident young kid, but I suffered from low self-esteem my whole life, and I never knew it. I could never quite see myself for the way I really was.
I remember getting in trouble when I was in 5th grade, and my mother went to a parent-teacher conference. I go, oh, man, I am going to get my ass kicked now. I am in trouble. And my mother came home. She said, Joe, you're a leader, and when you do something and you say something, everybody else does it. You have to watch what you're doing. And I looked at my mom. I thought, you went to the wrong parent-teacher conference. They can't not talking about me. I don't get that. I'm 14 years old, made Eagle Scout as a kid. General Westmoreland, Time Magazine's Man of the Year gave me my Eagle Scout Award. President Langston, University of Cincinnati's got me in his office at 14 years old. He says, have you ever thought about going to college? I said, no. He said, well, if you ever think about going to college and you ever want to go to college, we'll make sure that you go to college. Here's my card. This is my card at home, and this is my card at the office. You keep this. You might want to call me one day. And I walk out of there going, surely he can't be talking to me. Surely that was meant for the next kid coming in. It wasn't meant for me. Why would anybody offer me a college education? I don't get that. I don't get that. So I could never really see myself for the way I really was when people were trying to help me. I just couldn't see it. And as I started drinking more, as I started getting high more as a teenager, I started running away from home. I went from Eagle Scout to trying to find myself down in Florida in a trailer park at 16 years old. I had gotten a job as a busboy in a Chinese restaurant. My hair's out to here. I had one of those bushes where you turn your head and the hair would catch up to it like that. One of them, big bush. And I'm the only white guy in the restaurant going, egg roll. Everybody's Chinese but me. And I'm thinking, this is my life is normal. I don't want to go to school anymore. I want to try to find myself in Florida. And I found myself in a roach-infested trailer park. And I got kind of homesick at 16, and I went back home again. And I got into this cycle when things didn't go my way, my emotions would call the shot, and I would hitchhike back down there again. One time I hitchhiked down there with a guy. My hair's out to here. The guy with me has hair down to his butt. It's 1971, and it's Cordele, Georgia. You've been there. Whoa. That's a scary place, man. The cop pulled us over, and he walks up, and he was one of the little heavy-set guys with the mirror glasses. Had the county mountie hat on. And the closer he got to me, my hair got bigger and bigger in his glasses. And he looks at me and he goes, you white or black, boy? I didn't know your rectum could tighten up that fast. Because I had just seen that movie Deliverance. You remember that movie Deliverance? I could hear that banjo going. And the deputy with him said, we tie these boys up, throw them in the swamp. Nobody'd know a thing about it. And I thought, you know what they're going to do to us? I thought, he sure got a pretty set of lips on him, don't he? I mean, just that movie was playing in my head like that. And I'm going, what am I doing here? How did I get in this situation? Well, before you know it, I'm sitting in the assistant principal's office of the high school, and she's saying, you have to go to every class, but you can't pass the year. I said, run that by me again. I have to sit in the class every day, but I'm not going to pass. Yes, I'm out of here. You quit now, you'll never be nothing. I said, well, I guess I'll never be nothing. I'm out of here. I went into the Navy, starting over. I'm 17 years old. I went into the Navy. They put me in the bottom of a ship in a boiler room. To make a long story short, that's the first time I ever found out where I needed a drink at was out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It wasn't good. And I played a game to get out of the Navy. I got out after about a year and a half. I was supposed to be in there for 4 years. And not knowing that alcohol said, got to go in the Navy. Alcohol said, got to get out of the Navy. I didn't know that alcohol was making these decisions for me. And I'm trying to justify in my head, why am I doing what I'm doing? You know, our book talks about how we lead a double life. We've got this character on the outside that we want to present to the world. that we want people to think that we're a certain way, and on the inside we know we really don't deserve it. And my problem was I was leading a double life within myself. I'm living in between the lies within Joe going, what in the hell am I doing? And every once in a while I try to justify it to somebody else. Somebody says, I thought you signed up for 4 years. Why are you home after a year and a half? Well, you know the roll of the deck plates and my flat feet. I had to keep the lie going. Because I really couldn't tell them. I don't know why the hell I got out. Because, you know, if you tell them the truth, they think you're crazy. I had to drink. I had to leave. What? You had to leave? Yeah. You know, and I always had a fast answer for why I did what I did. I remember one time I passed out at a party with my pants down around my ankles. What? We're at AA. That shouldn't be bizarre to you. And the next day, this girl says, how come your pants were down around your ankles last night? I said, because I was hot. And the second thing that ran through my mind was, they were down around my ankles? They're not now. But you can't let people know you don't know why your own pants are down around your ankles. They'll think you're nuts. They'll think you're crazy, because you've got to come up with some fast thinking. Fast thinking. Make a long story short, I went through jobs, I went through relationships with women. I started to destroy my mother's house, and my mother joined AA in 1971. I went into the Navy in 1972. And 73, 74, 75 came around, and before you know it, we're tearing up my mother's house. Now, my mother's about this tall. She's been in AA. And she's trying to maintain some type of peace of mind in her sobriety, and her sons are coming home calling her those names in her kitchen at 3 and 4 in the morning and tearing up their house and throwing lamps drunk and fans that are plugged in and on and busting doors through hinges and threatening people and just burning her hardwood floors, passing out with cigarettes. And I'm wondering why she's screaming all the time. Why is she screaming all the time? Those people in AA have really brainwashed her. I mean, just because you can't drink once in a while, relax. Just relax. You are overreacting, man. And my mother ended up kicking me and my brother out, because she knew if she allowed us to live there, what she was doing is teaching us as young men that, one, we could live off of a woman, which is not a good idea for a young man, and two, that we could come home night after night and disrespect her and disrespect her property on a regular basis and pay no consequence. And I think somebody in AA finally got it through her head that she had to let us go, because it was the only thing that would help. She wasn't helping us by letting us live there. She was actually hurting us. And it was one of the greatest things my mother ever did for me. She kicked me out of the house, and I went down fast. I put all my belongings in 3 green hefty trash can liners. I had colors, whites, miscellaneous, and I put them in the back of an old 71 Chevy pickup truck, and I headed for Covington, Kentucky, on the other side of the river. And I was the only guy in the building under 65. There is 10 guys in the building. I am the only one under 65. I am the token hippie. I've got hair out to here. I've got bib overalls on, and everybody else is chewing Red Man and drinking whiskey, and I'm the new kid on the block. And I didn't know I was looking at myself if I was going to live long enough to experience that. Everybody shared the same bathtub on the 2nd floor. I had a sink in my room. I had a bare mattress on the floor for a bed and a cardboard box turned upside down for an end table. I had a light that hung from a wire on a ceiling. I had plastic curtains and grease on the blinds. I had a 4-pane window, and one of the panes was broken out, and the breeze would tatter that plastic back and forth at night. And I'd come in, and alcohol was still working for me at this time. Because I'd come in there, open the door, turn the lights on, those roaches just scatter. You know, lights will mess with roaches. They do not like light. I'd slam the door shut, and I'd put my keys and my 6 cents on my end table, which was a cardboard box, and I lay down, and everything's spinning like that, and I go, isn't this great? Nobody to bitch about my drinking. Man, this is great. And I'd kind of look over at the end, my end table, that cardboard box, and alcohol would say, hey, don't worry about it. It's a member of the wood family. We'll get you real wood one day. You just hang in there. So, all right. Or I'd kind of come to, and I'd look at my mattress, and I'd go, what the hell? And I'd go, don't worry. You hang in there. We'll get you sheets and box springs and pillows one day. You just hang in there. We'll take care of you. Or I'll wake up every once in a while and have one of these right in my eye. The antenna on a roach. And I go, Thoom. Everybody's got to have a place to stay, you know. Alcohol was still working for me. It never occurred to me I was there because of my drinking. I was there because my mother was nuts. She joined AA. When she joined AA, my mom and dad got divorced. Those people brainwashed her. I had all these reasons why I was there, but it was never because of me. Never. I was there. I was 21. I turned 22. I was there the winter of 1977. It was January the 18th. 25 below, wind chill factor 70 below. I'd gone out to drink at a bar back in the old neighborhood in Ohio, and the bar closed, and there was no one around. I had no hat, no gloves on, Old Navy pea coat, shirt, bib overalls, socks, and shoes. And I don't remember how I got to the next community before someone picked me up. The next thing I remember, I'm downtown by the Dixie Terminal building, downtown Cincinnati, 3:45 in the morning, and the winds of, and even drunk, oh, it felt like needles. Just, it was killing me. I mean, 70 below wind chills, man, it's mean. And I'm inside this building in this little cubby hole, and I'm thinking, man, you got to get over the river. You got to get up to 15th and Scott. Well, here goes. And I walked over the bridge, and it's about a 2-mile walk after you get over the bridge. And the river was frozen that year. The Ohio River was frozen. People walked across the river. And if you'd have stopped me in the middle of that bridge that night and said, Joe, you think you might have a problem with your drinking? I said, well, hell no, I don't have a problem with my drinking. I've got 30 cents, but the buses aren't running. I missed the last bus. I'll tell you what, my problem is not my drinking. It's that girlfriend that dumped me. It's the boss that fired me. I know why. I know why I'm out here. I have a GED. I never went to college. I never finished school. Oh, no, it's my mother. That's what it is. It's my mother. She's psycho. She just, I was wanting to burn her house down, but I had to leave. I couldn't do it. That's why I'm out here. But it's not alcohol. Alcohol is the thing that always worked for me. I remember being at the high school dance, the junior high dance. You know what I mean? I remember the first time I got rejected. Yeah, I got rejected. Would you like to dance? No. Oh, shit. Oh, it felt like somebody stabbed me. Oh. And somebody came along with a quart of Stroh's beer and said, you want a beer? I go, yeah, I'm not dancing. And I drank that quart of beer, and all of a sudden, I didn't feel rejected anymore. Woo! Oh, you know, and I didn't know if I'd have waited another day or so, that feeling of rejection would have went away, but I missed that lesson. Alcohol came by and just robbed me of that lesson. I just didn't know that till I got sober in my 20s. So there were things I didn't know and things I believed that were all wrong on that bridge. I remember it was springtime of 1977, and I was standing, I just finished a bottle of Wild Irish Rose, and I was standing with my face pressed up against the chain link fence of a parochial schoolyard at recess at 9:15 in the morning. And my face is up against the fence like that, you know, and I just pissed my pants. And I'm drunk, and I'm watching these kids, they're 9 and 10. I go, man, I wish I was 9 again. I wish I could go home to my mom. Mom, I didn't mean to turn out to be like this. Give me another chance. I didn't mean to call you those names. I didn't mean to hurt you. Just let me come back. Let me try over. Let me do it again. I'll be good. And the reality of it, hit that I wasn't going to be 9 and I wasn't going back home. I was going to go right back up the street and get a bottle of MD 2020 this time. And that was daily existence for me. That was what our book calls pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. I had no power. I went to my mother's house on April the 9th, 1977, and this is how I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you, honey. I had been out for two nights, wine, mescaline, and I was closer to my mother's house than I was my sleeping room in Kentucky. Now, I had a restraining order on me like my brother. We weren't allowed within a few hundred feet of my mother's house or we were going to jail. My mother was afraid of her own sons. And for some reason I thought, I haven't seen my mother since last year. I think I'm going to go see her. And I went to my mother's house. And just about the time I knocked on the door, I thought, restraining order. Oh, no. And she opened the door, and she was happy to see me. She goes, wow, I was just thinking of you. How have you been? The last time I saw you, I was coming home from an A New Year's Eve dance, and you were standing at the street corner in the snow at 3 a.m. She said, it was just so hard to drive by you, and that's the last time I saw you. How have you been? A little burnt out right now, Mom. But she let me in her house. And I said, did you ever get the feeling that the harder you tried to get someplace in life, the farther back you fell? Kind of like Sisyphus with the big stone. She said, yeah, I felt that many times, Joe. She says, look, I got to go down to the A clubhouse and open up. I'm working a coffee bar this morning, but when you leave, you shut the door and lock it, okay? I said, okay. And I thought, this must be a trick. This is a setup. She left me in her house. I have a restraining order on me. All this stuff's not making sense to me. And I sit in her recliner in the living room. It's about 10 o'clock. And I sit back, and I come to at noon. And most of the time, I never did talk about this over the years. I would just say, well, I had a spiritual experience that introduced me to AA, but I want to talk about that. When I opened my eyes, something was different. The only way I could describe it is I went to my mother's back door and I looked out and there was a rock garden with flowers. I could smell the grass. I could smell the flowers. There were birds chirping. There was a squirrel running across the ground. There were kids out there. The first time they'd ever played baseball in their life. They were that big, and none of their clothes ever fit when they're that big. They had those big parachute pants on, and somebody got the first hit in their life. And he was so excited that he hit the ball, he went the wrong way. He went down the third baseline. They go, no, the other way. Oh, and he goes back the other way. And the tears just started streaming down my face. I thought, oh my God, where have I been? This has been here every year. This has been here every spring. Where have I been? What the hell's wrong with me? And I went in and I started doing dishes in my mother's sink. And I hate dishes. And I was listening to country western. And at that time, I hated country western. I'm crying because I'm laughing. And I'm laughing because I'm crying. And I'm going, wow, something's happened to me. I don't know what it is. The only way I can describe it is every negative emotion, every negative thought was pushed aside, and I wasn't allowed to touch them. I couldn't touch them. I tried. I couldn't touch them. And I called my mother. I said, Mom, something's happened to me. Something inside says, you don't have to drink anymore. You don't have to get high anymore. And I called my mother. I said, something's happened, Mom. How do you stay sober? And I heard her crying on the other end of the phone. Oh, my God, he's one of them. I said, Mom, how do you stay sober? And she put this guy on the phone, And he talked to me for a little while. I said, why don't you come on down tonight, kid? We'd love to have you. Come on. And I said, look, I felt like I've been on a merry-go-round the last 10 years of my life, and it just stopped, and I stepped off. I'm going back to my sleeping room in Kentucky and take a bath in a community bathtub on the second floor. I'll be down tomorrow. And I went to my very first meeting on April the 10th, 1977. I was 22 years old, hair out to here, bib overalls on. You'll like this, Norma. Nothing underneath. No shirt, no underwear. I had that flow-through look going. I had no socks. And I showed up at AA, and this guy, he was old. He was 55. I'm 54. 55 is mild. But back then, when you're 22, anybody over 30 is old. He said, come on in, kid. It's good to have you. Why don't you come on over here and have a cup of coffee? Come on over here. What's your name? And he just welcomed me in like he had known me his whole life. And I thought, he's just doing that because he knows my mother. And he started talking to me about himself and his drinking. And there was this woman over here. She was old. Christ, she was 40. And she was a housewife, and she's telling me about her drinking. And she says, you know, Joe, if you want to find a way up and out of your problems, we'll share with you how we did it. And there's a guy up there telling his story, kind of like I'm doing now. He was cool. He was cool. His nose was kind of off to the side. Somebody had hit him with a tire iron. And the guy that hit him with the tire iron, he got him. He went back and tied him to a railroad track and waited for the train. I said, that's my kind of guy. This AA stuff is cool. And I met people you would not believe. I went there every night. I was with groups of people who were old enough to be my parents and my grandparents, and not one person said anything. Where's your shirt? Where's your underwear? Where's your socks? Do you have a job? What the hell do you do? Nobody, they always seem to be happy to see me. Always. And one night after going to AA for a couple of months, I said, hey, have you seen so-and-so? This guy used to ride up to Oak Street, this clubhouse in Cincinnati, with a suit, three-piece suit, and a helmet on a motorcycle. Bing! I thought he was cool. He was like 65, 70 years old. And they said, oh, you mean Judge so-and-so? I said, no, the guy's been here every night. That's Judge so-and-so. Oh, my God, I told him way too much. Oh, I'm going to jail, man. I'm going to jail. You know, I just met the neatest people. I never would have met these people in a million years. But you know how I come to AA? Resentment-free. I wasn't afraid of anything. My conscience and my mind was at rest. And that's not a good way to approach AA. It's hard to ask for help when you don't really feel like you need any. And after about 89 days, I went to my sponsor. I said, yeah, I might have had a problem with alcohol. What do you think of weed? He said, well, you know, if you haven't had a problem with it, I suggest you smoke it. I said, I have nailed the best sponsor in AA right here. So I went out and smoked pot and got paranoid for the first time in my life. And what do you do when you get paranoid? You drink alcohol to calm down. I had to calm down, you know. And I drank, and I came back, and the feeling of well-being was gone. That feeling of everything being at peace was gone. Every resentment, every anxiety, every fear, every grudge I had was right back. And I came back, and the weirdest thing was I felt like I let my sponsor down. I felt like I let AA down. And my sponsor was there. I said, would you still be my sponsor? He goes, yeah. Why wouldn't I still be your sponsor? You're helping me stay sober. This is some goofy stuff here. Stayed sober 4 months the next time. Went back and drank like I'd never been to AA. Stayed sober 5 months the next time. Went to a meeting every day for 5 months. Chaired the 5th month. Walked out of the meeting, went and got a bottle of MD 2020 like I had never been to AA. And I'm halfway done with the bottle, and I go, you are out of your mind. You are constitutionally incapable of being honest with yourself. You're one of those people that are never, ever going to make it. Never. Because I thought, well, now this is the longest I've ever been. You know what I mean? And there's a saying in AA, and it kind of makes people like me neurotic. The farther you are away from your last drink, the closer you are to your next one. Doesn't leave you much, does it? It's like, shit! Well, I would hear stuff like that. You know what I mean? And, oh, God, it just made me neurotic. I think, well, I'm sober longer than I've ever been, but the next one's coming faster now. What do you do? And I went in and out of AA. I went through a hospital for alcoholism, and I went down, down, down hard. And I came back on October 5th, 1978. And believe me, I have been reading this book for 30 years. This book is an afterthought of what the first 70-some members did. They wrote down what they think happened. It's true. They wrote down what they think happened. Well, you know, you read the big book and you read the third step. They couldn't have all done that because the book hadn't been written yet. They couldn't have got the book down off the shelf because it hadn't been written yet. So they wrote what they thought they did. I'm not making it up. I didn't write it. And I've been reading this book for quite some time, and my sponsor says, "You've been reading that book?" I said, "Yeah, but I don't understand it." And he knew how sick I was. And I came back on. I know that the book says, you know, we had to concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. Hell, I didn't know what alcoholic meant. I was too sick to know what alcoholic meant. We were faced with two choices: to blot out the intolerable consciousness of our situation going out to the bitter end, or accept spiritual health. Both of them look bad. How do you know what sobriety is to choose it? I didn't know what it was to choose it. I was too ill. And I don't remember what was said at the meeting that night, but I remember what was said in my sponsor's car after the meeting. He said, "I want to thank you. You helped save my life this past year. Now, I'm smell bad. My mind's running. I've got this anxiety going. I feel like I'm running out of time. Okay, Mike, how'd I save your life?" He said, "My mother died of leukemia this past year, Joe, and I made a deal with God. You save my mother, I'll stay sober. If she dies, screw you, AA, my home group, my sponsor, everybody." And she died. And he says, "Just about the time I was ready to drink, you drank. And I saw you come back in the shape you were in." He said, "Oh, my God, that's the last thing I need in my life. Thanks. You really teach me a lot." And it was the first time I ever really said what was on my mind. I said, "You son of a bitch, I'm not teaching you anymore." And that's exactly, it just came out. I couldn't help it. And I walked away from his car thinking, you think you're so smart. I'm going to do everything you do. I'm going to smoke those Benson and Hedges like you do. I'm going to tell them same stupid jokes you tell night after night. I'm going to go to the same meetings you go to. I'm going to drink the same coffee you drink. I'm going to read a dumb book that doesn't have a picture in it. I'm going to try to do what it says to do. And when it doesn't work out, I can say, "This is the right finger. Told you so." And I've been sober ever since. Now, I didn't sit down and go, "Well, I think I'll surrender today." God knew what surrender would mean to me and how I would understand it. But you know, I want to share something with you. I was sober about 23 years, and this came back into my mind. You would think something that had this big of impact on me would have come back sooner. I was sober about 10 days, and I'm going to AA again. I'm going, "Oh, no. You know, I don't think I'm going to make it. I'm going to go back out again. I can feel it." And my sponsor says, "Look, you're not new anymore. I'm not a taxi service, okay? You know where AA is. You get here, and I'll make sure you get a ride home. But I'm not picking you up anymore." I said, "Okay." And I got to the meeting. And after the meeting, I said, "I got to the meeting, Mike. You going to give me a ride?" He says, yeah, come on. And he was cool, man. Damn, he was cool. He had a 1972 Nova. It was orange, man, with mag wheels. Air conditioned with an 8-track stereo. Damn, was he cool. And I got in his car, and he puts the keys in the ignition, and he stops. And before he turns it, he still has his fingers on the keys, and he looks at me, and he goes, I need to tell you something, Joe. I said, what? He said, I need to tell you something as your sponsor. He says, I need to tell you, if you make staying sober and following this path in this book and being an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous the most important thing in your life, you will never have to worry about a job, Joe. You will never have to worry about money. You will never have to worry about relationships. They will eventually all be taken care of for you. I promise you. And for 10 seconds I thought, he's telling me the truth. There's no reason for him to make that up. And all of a sudden my mind came back into play. I was like, what? Come on, man, I got laundry to do. Let's go. They don't want me using the laundromat after 10. But there, I started my journey in AA with this schizophrenic approach to AA. I'll show you. You promised. I'll show you. You promised. And that's the way I started in AA. And I didn't understand this. It was all words on paper. You know, I was like a kid who had stuck in the first grade. I know 2 and 2 is 4. I know all the AB. I know that. I had heard the 5th chapter so many times. I had heard the promise. It didn't mean anything to me. But I got to about 30 days sober, and I was ready to run. I said, what'd you do? He said, you've been reading that book? I said, yeah. I said, but I don't understand it. I read it, but nothing's sticking in here. I read the same sentence over and over, and nothing will stay. I'm trying, but ain't nothing going in. And he says, write that inventory. Write that stuff down that's bothering you, those grudges, those things that are making you mad, the things that you're afraid about, and those things in your sex life you were never going to tell anybody about. I said, write that stuff down. And he said, if you could see where you're fault in any of it, put that down. He said, that's what I did. Now, I'm not going to get into the mechanics of the inventory, but I know today more than ever that my problem was lack of power. It wasn't time or distance. It wasn't the farther away from the last one, closer you are to the next. It was lack of power. And when I see somebody's inventory today, what they're really showing me is, this is how I'm living my life without a power. Isn't it a mess? Because that is what that inventory was. It was a reflection of how I was living my life without that power. And that AA was going to hook me up with a new power. Now, can you imagine being new and you came in and somebody says, I know what your problem is, kid. What? You're suffering from a power outage. You're a little low on power today. And we're going to hook you up with a new power. I go, oh, no, not one of these people. Oh, no. Or, here's one. You need God. Oh. Bye. I would never have been able to swallow that. I couldn't tolerate that. But my higher power came to me in the form of sobriety. Can you not drink for 24 hours, kid, and come on with us to the meeting tonight? Well, hell, anybody can do that. Then you get to the meeting and they slide a prayer in on you. Just kind of like touching the waters, you know what I mean? Then they had the meeting and then they throw another prayer in on you. And you know, I used to think that relying on a higher power there was some kind of sacrifice I had to perform or some great feat. But you know, my wife and I have 2 sons. They're 24 and 25, and when they were 2 and 3 years old, if you're new, maybe this will help. My wife would go out to our Al-Anon meeting, and those little buggers would come to me in the kitchen. They go, Dad, can I have some water? Oh, yeah, here. Give them the water. Why? I'm their father, and they're my kids. They're thirsty. I'm supplying them with what they need. And when that happened, it was like, oh, this is like my relationship with God. How would it sound? How would this sound? Dad, can I have a glass of water? No, you wrote on the wall with crayons Tuesday. You're not getting any water till Friday. Conditional water? Here's a good one. Dad, can I have some water? Didn't sound like you really mean it. Get on your knees and ask for water. What? My God doesn't require me to give up or sacrifice anything. He just wants me to ask. And He's going to provide me with the spiritual cup of water that He knows I already need. He was just waiting for me to ask. And when I saw that, my relationship with God changed. It changed as I was going through the steps. This relationship with God wasn't something so insurmountable that only certain people could have access. Anybody could have access. We feel the realm of the Spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek it. In other words, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. My problem in sobriety is from time to time is my mind will paint me into a corner where there is no God. I'll be in the no God zone. How you doing? I'm in the no God zone today. Of course, we laugh. There is no God zone, but my thinking can paint me into this picture. You know, they said, come up with a God you can rely on, something you can believe in. Do you believe your God will take care of you and keep you sober? Yeah. Do you think your God will help you if you're sick? Yeah. Do you think your God will take care of you if you get divorced and owe 10 years of alimony and child support? You go, well, I don't know. That's kind of stretching it a little bit, isn't it? You know, oh, wait a minute. I've come up with a conditional God here. God isn't the problem. It's my concept of God that's the problem. It's like this thing I can't get to because I've done something wrong or not met these requirements or something like that. And I've come to find out how crazy that thinking was, that my alcoholism is what separated me from my God. And I went on with the rest of the steps. At 30 days sober, I went through the steps to try to prove they wouldn't work. It's all words on paper. I have no underwear. What am I doing? I don't have a social life. I'm not going out dancing tonight. Nothing's going on. And at 2 months sober, something happened. I was rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. I didn't know it, but I knew something was wrong. Every time my life gets better, I go, something's wrong. I call my sponsor up. He goes, what's going on? I go, there's nothing on my mind. It's making me nervous. He said, that's peace of mind. He said, that's what AA does for us. It removes the obsession and renders the sufferer happy, whole, and useful. You're going to have to get used to that. And I said, well, let me run this by you. I said, I'm a slipper. I've been in and out of AA 20, 30 times. I was down at the local 7-Eleven. I was buying a pack of cigarettes. And I walked by the tuna, and I walked by the beer case. And I didn't want tuna anymore than I wanted beer. Is there something wrong with me? How do you go from alcohol being the focal point of your life to meaning the same thing as a can of tuna? Something's wrong here. And he goes, no, Joe, that's peace of mind. That's what AA does for people like us. And he says, I need to tell you this. I said, what's that? He goes, you're free. I says, I am? He says, you're free. I said, free? What do you mean? He said, you don't have to fight the obsession. It's not there. He says, you can do what you want with your life, provided you keep a certain simple attitude toward these principles in AA. You run across the right woman, by all means, get married. You want to start a business? Start a business. You want to go to college? Go to college. You want to travel the world? Travel. You can do anything that anybody else does, provided you put AA first. And I hung up. I thought, boy, that sounds awful good. I wish it was true. I mean, I thought, oh, God, I really wish I could believe like he believes. And as time went by, my life started to unfold. I mean, I learned to fly a plane. I got a pilot's license. And somebody said, why'd you do that? I said, well, my sponsor, I was like a little kid. My sponsor, you can do anything you want to do. So I thought I'd go learn to fly a plane. And that's what I did. I was riding by an airport one day, and I said, I think I'll go do that. And I went and learned how to fly a plane. And that was an interesting experience. I remember the first time I flew a plane by myself, sober. I was going to do a cross country, and I took this flight plan to my instructor, and he looks at it and he goes, good plan. Good plan. You follow that, you'll be all right. Good. Take off. I'm flying. I'm going, I am flying a plane, a rhino in the air. Check it out. I mean, I was just so cranked up. And I'm flying along, and it's supposed to be about 30, 35 minutes, and about 5 minutes before I get there, I went, what if I get there and it's not there? What if I've been going the wrong way the whole time? And the rear end tightened up again. And you can't just say, I quit and get out. You can't do that, man. You've got to make a decision. I thought, wait, what do you say? What do you say? Oh, he said it's a good flight plan, and if I follow this, I'll be okay. I hope he's right, because if I live and he's not, I'll kill him. You know? And I thought, well, according to this, 5 minutes from now, there should be a dam at the end of this lake. And God damn, there better be a runway. I'm flying along, and I'm praying. I said, oh, God, what did I do? And I get there, and there's the dam, and there's the runway. I said, shoot, I can go anywhere. And I go, isn't that like my journey in AA? There's been so many times where I go, what if the steps don't take care of this? What if being a sober member of AA doesn't work for that? You know, my wife and I, she had 2 little boys. They're born a year apart on the same day, November 20th, 83 and 84. And the younger boy was born with his feet on upside down. He's crippled. I'm going, wait a minute, where's the crippled foot chapter in here? You know what I mean? I didn't have enough foresight to see how God was going to take care of every member of my family, but every one of my family members have been taken care of. That little boy that was crippled, he's an aerospace engineer for Gulfstream Jet. He had a minor in German. He speaks fluent Japanese and is an aerospace engineer. He never needed his feet. I didn't know. How the hell was I supposed to know? But for years I'm going, oh, God, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with this? I got a handicapped kid. I was the one that was handicapped. He was fine. I had to go to AA to accept him. He moved on. Woo, my God, man. I wanted to talk about 2 things before I stop talking, and I've just seen this in the last 2 years of my life, and this is, to me, this is great stuff for me. You know, that pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization where I came in today, I felt like I was running out of time, I felt inadequate, I felt stupid and dumb and just not able to do anything. And over the years, I think I've judged myself just being too hard. There was something about me where I was always picking on myself about something. I know nobody else has done that here, but there was always something. I would always find something wrong with myself. Now, don't get me wrong. My life continued to get better. But in 1998, I took my 14-year-old son to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, and somebody said, why'd you do that? I said, well, I've already been to SeaWorld. I thought I'd try that out. Looked like it'd be fun, so I went ahead and did that. And we were with a group of people, interesting people from Europe, and we're going up this mountain, and there's different camps on the way up, and we stop one night, and we're all sitting there talking, and it eventually gets around to what you do for a living. I'm a stationary engineer. I'm licensed high-pressure boiler operator for utility plants like up the road here. And two guys from Sweden, PhDs, work for telecom. One guy is an Austrian political science professor, teaches political science in Austria, and his daughter Christina teaches German in England. And it gets around to me, and they go, "What do you do for a living?" I go, "Well, I boil water," And they did what you did; they just laughed it off. As it never occurred to me, I'm on the same mountain that they are. Never occurred to me. And then I always wanted to paddle down the Amazon and camp in the rainforest, so I thought I'd do that, so I went and did that. And I'm paddling down the Amazon in this boat, and I'm with a really neat group of people, and it gets to, "What do you do for a living?" And the guy behind me goes, "Well, I own my own computer company." And this guy behind him, he's a golf pro, and they get up to me, I go, "Well, I boil water myself." It was like, what the hell is that all about? What is that all about? I don't, it was like GED Joe. I guess I always saw myself as that. I saw myself as less than who I really was. And this is a form of honesty. And this isn't the cash register honesty where, "Gee, you gave me $2 too much and I owe you." Spiritual honesty has nothing to do with that. Spiritual honesty is being aware. All those times I came in and out of AA, it wasn't that I wasn't honest about my drinking. But all of a sudden I became aware that I wanted to be sober more than I wanted to drink. And that was a form of spiritual honesty. Well, for some reason, in the past couple of years, something's happened to me by staying on this path where I don't see myself as a guy that just boils water. I'm going to tell you who I am as a man. This is what you've done for me. I'm one of God's kids. I'm an active, sober, respected member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a homeowner. I'm a licensed pilot. I'm a licensed stationary engineer. I'm a world traveler. That's right, I said it. I'm a world traveler. I'm a grandfather. Yeah, I got a little granddaughter about 1.5 years old. I got some good energy and bad habits to share with her. And I didn't know this till I was sober 16 years, that I was a good speaker. I heard people say, "You could sell dog food to a cat." I can. And I was at the Richland Empire up in Washington on the Columbia River, and for some reason I had like this temporary out-of-body experience. And I got to hear myself and see myself. I went, "Damn, I'm a good speaker. Damn." And I'm also a good speaker. Those are all the things that I am. That is the big picture of who Joe Annis Hansel is. And for some reason, I could never see the big picture in my life till the last couple of years. Don't ask me why. I don't know, but I like what I see. I like the man that I am, and I don't apologize for what God's done for me and my family. I'm tickled with it. I started 1/4 after. I've got 7 minutes. This is beautiful. I'm going to slide in under the wire. I'm going to end with this story. This happened in 2001, right before 9/11. I had taken my oldest son over to Africa, and I always felt a little twinge of guilt. It's like, what am I going to do with a boy that's crippled? He ended up having his feet operated on and braces and all kind of stuff. I mean, he walks on the bottoms now, but he's not mountain climbing material. At least I didn't think so. And what am I going to do? And Bob was real smart. And he scored like 20th in the nation in a German proficiency test in high school. He was a sophomore. And I said, "Bob, would you like to go to Germany? I would love to go somewhere with you." He said, "Yeah, I'd like to go to Switzerland first, though." And I says, "Why don't we," this is a year out, I says, "why don't we plan a trip together? And we did that. We planned a trip to Switzerland and Germany and Belgium and the Netherlands. And I thought, oh, God, what am I going to do with my wife and my other boy? Well, he did well in French. So I said, would you like to go to France? And he goes, yeah, I'd love that. So my wife and my oldest boy started, and we all left the United States on the same day. They went to Paris. We went to Zurich, Switzerland. We had an itinerary all the way up till we went to the Netherlands. And they said, well, we're just going to wing it. After 3 days in Paris, we're going to go where we want to go. I go, okay, we're all going to meet in the Netherlands the last 4 days at The Hague on the North Sea, right? Right. So I start this journey with my son. And I didn't know that I could spend that much time with my son, the boy that I could never figure out what to do with. But it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had in my life. We went to Zurich, we went to Interlaken, we went to Lake Lucerne, we went to Munich, we walked through Dachau, the extermination camp, we went to the Hofbrauhaus and watched people get wiped out on mugs of beer. It was great. God, it was so much fun. I mean, I just loved it. And we went to Stuttgart, and we went all to these different places, and we had a couple of days to kill before we met my wife and my oldest boy. I said, Bob, where would you like to go? He said, I'd like to go to Brussels, Belgium. Dad, I heard it's really pretty there. I said, well, let's get on the train and go. We've got a Eurail pass. Let's go. And we're riding along, and he goes, there's this church in Cologne. Can we stop and see it? Well, yeah. So we get off, and it's right outside the train station. We stayed there for a couple hours looking at this church. It's just gorgeous. I thought, look at that. Wow. We got back on the train, and we're riding for a while, and I'm looking at this map. I said, Bob, I know you want to go to Brussels, but there's a little town called Bruges, and it looks like it's closer to where we're going in The Hague. Would you mind if we stop there? He goes, no, I don't mind. So we went there, and we got off the train, and there's no currency exchange there. I go, oh, what are we going to do? I talked the taxi cab driver to take us to a bank and exchanging the money. And then we went and got a little room off the square, and there's thousands of people there. It's August 2001. It is so hot. Thousands of people there. And I'm walking along on this cobblestone road with my son. I says, you know, I was thinking of your mother and your brother. I says, I miss your mom so bad. I had a dream I saw her last night. He goes, well, Dad, even if she was here, look, there's thousands of people here. You'd never find her. So I'm just thinking out loud, Bob, I just miss your mom. And we started walking. My knees started hurting a little bit. I said, let's sit down on this little bench right here for about a half hour. Let me rest my knee. Then we got up and walked out to the square and sat at this little restaurant, this little cafe on the square, watching thousands of people in August. And we're eating buckets of mussels, watching everybody go by. And I went up to pay the bill. And I got up to talk to the maitre d', and down the street I heard this voice say, hey, Killer Joe. I said, who the hell knows me in Belgium? Because that's my nickname in Cincinnati in AA is Killer Joe. And it was my wife and my son. I looked at Bob. I said, we didn't have to find them. They found us. And that isn't the story. This is what really blew me away, how it happened. They had a bad time in Paris. Things didn't go well for them, so they left and went to Bruges. They had stayed in Bruges for 5 days. They thought, you know, we think they're going to go up to Amsterdam. We're going to go up and check the hotels out and see if they're there. And they went up there. We weren't there. They spent the night in Amsterdam. They came back, and on the way back, there was a gas leak on the rail line that delayed that rail by 5 hours. And when they came back, they stayed in the same little place, the Hotel Adorn. And my son says, let's walk down this street, Mom. We've never been on this street. And there we were. Of all the places in all of Europe, we met right there. Now, this is the point of the story. Was stopping off to see the church in Cologne good or bad? Neither. It was necessary. or paths would never have crossed. If they had a currency exchange at that station, we would have went boom, 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 and our paths would never have crossed. Was the station's lack of a currency exchange good or bad? Neither. It was necessary. And oh yeah, my knee's killing me. You know, if we wouldn't have sat down for a half hour on that little bench, we would have never met. Was my knee hurting good or bad? And just think if they'd have had a good time in Paris and they stayed one more day. Just think if the rail line had a gas leak for 4 hours and 45 minutes. Were those all good or bad things? No. They were all necessary because everything had to happen the way it did in order for us to meet on that day. And my whole life flashed in front of my face. I had judged myself so hard over the years for the things I had said and done to my wife and kids. Sometimes I was a good husband. Sometimes I wasn't. Sometimes I was a good father. Sometimes I wasn't. And I judged myself, oh, that's good or that's bad. And I realized none of that happened was good or bad. It was all necessary for me to be the man that I am today. And I want to let you know, if you're new in your first year of sobriety, I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to promise you that if you make staying sober and being an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous and trying to follow this path, you will never have to worry about money. You will never have to worry about a job. You'll never have to worry about relationships. They'll all be taken care of for you. I promise you. But you will worry. You'll worry. But you will worry. You'll worry because it's necessary. Thank you so much.
Been afraid of changes, but you show me life is full of faces. Sometimes clouds got in our favorite places, but we were young and unaware.
Oh, I got you, there's no reason to chasing payment on my own, 'cause you're here to stay every night.